The Galactic Harmony Institute stood as a monument to peace, a crystalline spire that pierced the lavender sky of Kepler 442b, its translucent walls refracting the light of twin suns into rainbow cascades that danced across marble floors. For 3 centuries it had served as the galaxy's premier academy of interspecies relations, where the brightest minds from 1,000 worlds gathered to study the delicate art of maintaining peace among the stars. Dr. Zefthara Nadefos adjusted her 6-fingered hands along the lectern's edge, her iridescent skin shifting from deep purple to a contemplative blue as she gazed upon her most promising class. 27 students from 17 different species sat in the amphitheater's curved rows, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic unity. Tentacles, carapaces, fur, scales, and exotic biology that defied easy categorization, all united in their pursuit of understanding. All except one. In the back row, almost hidden in shadow, sat the human. Marcus Chen had been an enigma since his arrival 6 months ago. Earth's first representative to the Institute, he carried himself with a quiet intensity that made the other students unconsciously avoid his proximity. Not from fear, fear was an almost extinct emotion among the galaxy's civilized species, but from something deeper, something primal that whispered warnings in languages older than speech. Today, Dr. Nevos began, her voice carrying the melodic undertones of her homeworld's singing crystals, we examine the predator-prey dynamic in pre-spaceflight civilizations, a theoretical exercise, of course, as true predator species rarely achieve the harmony necessary for interstellar civilization. The Klaxon student, Vriktal 9, raised one of his 4 arms. His insectoid features chittered with academic curiosity. Dr. Nevius, surely the archives contain no examples of predator species achieving space travel. A ripple of agreement passed through the class. The very notion seemed absurd. Predators, by definition, lacked the cooperative instincts necessary for complex civilization. They consumed rather than created, dominated rather than collaborated. The galaxy's great civilizations had all evolved from herbivores, filter feeders, or at most opportunistic omnivores who had long since abandoned their primitive hunting instincts. Dr. Nevos's skin shifted to a cautionary yellow. The theoretical models suggest it's possible, though unlikely. Predator species tend toward self-destruction or stagnation. Their neural pathways are hardwired for violence, competition, and territorial behavior. They see existence as a zero-sum game. From the back of the class, a sound emerged, soft, barely audible, but somehow it reached every ear in the amphitheater. Marcus Chen was smiling, not the gentle expression of shared humor common among civilized beings, but something else entirely, something that made the temperature in the room seem to drop several degrees. Mr. Chen, Dr. Nevos said, her skin flickering with confusion, you seem amused. Do you have something to contribute to our discussion? Marcus leaned back in his chair, the movement somehow predatory despite its casualness. Around him, the other students shifted unconsciously, creating a wider buffer of empty seats. He hadn't spoken much during his time at the Institute. A few questions here and there, observations that were always astute but somehow unsettling. I was just thinking, Marcus said, his voice carrying an accent that the universal translators struggled to properly render, about assumptions. The room fell silent. Dr. Nevos's skin cycled through several colors before settling on an uncertain green. Assumption? About predators, Marcus continued, his dark eyes scanning the faces turned toward him. Each species reacted differently to his gaze. The Zelithian's scales darkened. The Morganti's tentacles contracted. The ethereal collective's energy fields flickered with what could only be described as nervousness. You assume they're primitive because they hunt. You assume they're violent because they kill. You assume they can't cooperate because competition is in their nature. Sialthveren, a graceful Celestine with features like flowing water, spoke with the voice of her entire species' mind. Are these assumptions incorrect? Human Marcus? Your own planet's history suggests otherwise. We have studied your archives, the wars, the violence, the countless conflicts over resources and territory. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. The smile widened, but there was no humor in it now. You've studied our archives. Tell me, Sialthveren, what did you conclude about humanity? That your species shows remarkable potential for growth, she replied diplomatically. Your transition from primitive aggression to civilized cooperation in such a short time span suggests an admirable capacity for evolution. Primitive aggression, Marcus repeated, tasting the words. Is that what you call it? Dr. Naivas sensed the discussion veering into dangerous territory. The human's psychological profile had contained irregularities. Earth was classified as a Class 7 death world, barely habitable even by frontier standards. Its representatives were expected to be somewhat rough around the edges. But Marcus Chen had scored perfectly on every psychological evaluation. Too perfectly, perhaps. Mr. Chen, she interjected. Perhaps we should return to our theoretical discussion. No, please, Marcus said, rising from his seat with a fluid motion that somehow suggested coiled springs and hidden knives. I'd like to explore this theoretical predator species a bit more. Tell me, Dr. Naivas, what would such a species look like if it did achieve space travel? The professor's skin had settled into a steady amber, the color of deep unease. Well, theoretically, they would likely be highly organized, with strict hierarchies. They would be territorial, aggressive in their expansion, and would view other species as either threats to be eliminated or resources to be exploited. Interesting, Marcus said, beginning to walk slowly down the amphitheater's steps. Each footfall echoed in the sudden silence. And how would the galaxy respond to such a species? Immediate containment, Bricktal 9 chittered without hesitation. The Harmony Accords are quite specific about aggressive species. They would be quarantined to their home system until they could prove their capacity for peaceful coexistence. Marcus paused, his hand resting on one of the student desks. The Morganti sitting there, Gulthas Moore, recoiled from the proximity as if Marcus carried some invisible contagion. And if they proved difficult to contain, the question hung in the air like a toxin. Dr. Naivas's skin had gone completely white, a color that indicated either pure terror or complete submission. She couldn't seem to decide which. The Harmony Fleet would, she began, then stopped. Something in Marcus's eyes made the words die in her throat. Go on, Marcus encouraged softly. The Harmony Fleet would what? Would implement final solution protocols, she whispered. Genocide, Marcus said, the word falling like a stone into still water. You would commit genocide against a species whose only crime was being what evolution made them. The Celestine spoke again, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 interconnected minds. It would be regrettable but necessary. One cannot allow a cancer to spread throughout the body. Marcus stopped walking. For a long moment he simply stood in the center of the amphitheater, surrounded by the galaxy's brightest minds, all of them looking down at him with varying degrees of pity and disdain. When he looked up, his expression had changed completely. The smile was gone. Dr. Naivas, he said quietly, I have a confession to make. The professor's skin began cycling through colors so rapidly it became a strobing cascade of warning signals. Mr. Chen, perhaps we should. I lied on my psychological evaluations. The words hit the class like a physical blow. Several students rose from their seats, backing toward the exits. Others simply stared, frozen by a growing realization that something fundamental had just shifted in their understanding of reality. You see, Marcus continued, his voice carrying a new timbre, something colder, more focused. There's something about my species that your archives don't mention. Something we've been very careful to keep hidden. Dr. Naivas reached for the emergency alert, but her hands were shaking too badly to activate it. What are you saying? Marcus looked directly at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her species memory scream warnings about ancient dangers, about death that walked on two legs and smiled while it killed. I'm saying that your theoretical predator species isn't theoretical at all, Marcus said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. We've been here all along. We've been sitting in your classes, walking your halls, learning your weaknesses, and preparing for the day when the galaxy discovers what we really are. The silence that followed was absolute. 27 minds processing information that their evolutionary programming insisted couldn't be true. Humans were primitive, violent perhaps, but ultimately harmless, refugees from a dying world seeking the galaxy's protection and guidance. They couldn't be. Marcus reached into his jacket, a casual movement that somehow carried the weight of inevitability. What he withdrew wasn't a weapon, but something far more terrifying. A small device that every species in the galaxy recognized, a quantum communicator linked directly to the Harmony Council's emergency network. "You know what this is?" Marcus said, holding the device up for all to see. "One button, and the entire galaxy knows that humanity has been lying for the past 50 years, that we've infiltrated your worlds, your governments, your military academies, that we've been studying you while you thought you were studying us." Dr. Naivas found her voice at last, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Why? Why are you telling us this?" Marcus's smile returned, but now it carried a weight that seemed to press down on every living thing in the room. "Because tomorrow the Harmony Council votes on humanity's petition for full membership, and I wanted you to understand exactly what you're voting to let in." He pressed the button. Across the galaxy on 1,000 worlds, emergency klaxons began to wail. The Emergency Council chamber beneath New Geneva hummed with the desperate energy of civilizations on the brink. Representatives from across the galaxy had convened within hours of Marcus Chen's revelation, their diverse forms casting strange shadows in the chamber's crimson emergency lighting. The very air seemed to vibrate with fear and barely contained panic. Admiral Kess, the Red X of the Harmony Fleet, stood at the central podium. Her usual composed demeanor cracked like fractured ice. Her species, the Velorians, had evolved from peaceful grazing creatures on a world where cooperation meant survival. Violence was not merely foreign to them. It was physiologically impossible. Their neural pathways literally lacked the connections necessary for aggressive thought, which made the current situation a nightmare beyond their wildest imagination. The quantum pulse was received simultaneously across 17 sectors, Admiral Vex reported, her voice carrying the tremor of a species confronting their deepest evolutionary fears. Human settlements, diplomatic missions, trade posts, and educational exchanges, all of them activated coordinated broadcasts. The message was identical across all channels. The massive holographic display flickered to life, showing Marcus Chen's face projected across the chamber. But this wasn't the quiet, introspective student from the Galactic Harmony Institute. This was something else entirely, a predator who had finally decided to bare its teeth. "Greetings, Galactic Harmony Council." Marcus's recorded voice echoed through the chamber. "My name is Lieutenant Commander Marcus Chen, Terran Intelligence Division, Sol Federation Defense Corps. For the past 50 years, humanity has been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. We have studied your technologies, infiltrated your governments, and embedded operatives in every major institution across known space." A collective shudder ran through the assembled representatives. The klaxon delegation began chittering in distress harmonics. The Morganti withdrew deeper into their environmental suits. Even the usually unflappable Celestine collective showed signs of agitation, their shared consciousness fragmenting under the weight of revelation. "We did this," Marcus continued, "not out of malice but out of necessity. You see, my species has a fundamental problem. We are exactly what you fear most. We are apex predators from a world that tried to kill us for 2 million years. We evolved not to create harmony, but to destroy anything that threatened our survival. And that, by your own definitions, makes us monsters." Chancellor Threnix, Xi of the ethereal collective, materialized more solidly than usual, his energy form crackling with anxiety. "How many?" he whispered. "How many operatives do they have embedded?" Admiral Vex's hands shook as she accessed the classified briefing files. "Intelligence estimates. Conservative estimates suggest between 50 and 70,000 individuals across the galaxy, all of them maintaining deep cover for decades. Some have held positions of significant authority." The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 70,000 predators, hidden among them for half a century, learning their secrets, studying their weaknesses, preparing for... The recording continued. "We know your response protocols. We've read your contingency plans. We understand that your first instinct will be to contain us, to quarantine Earth and prevent the infection of predator consciousness from spreading. But there's something you need to understand about predators, something your peaceful evolution has left you unprepared to comprehend." Marcus leaned forward in the recording, and even through the holographic projection, His presence seemed to fill the chamber with an oppressive weight. We don't just survive, we adapt. We overcome. And we never ever stop hunting. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. For several minutes no one spoke. The weight of realization was too enormous to process. They had welcomed wolves into their fold, thinking them Dr. Yitharanase of the Xenobiology Institute was the first to find her voice. Her crystalline form chimed with harmonic distress as she spoke. The psychological profiles. How did they deceive our most advanced scanners? They didn't, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. All heads turned to see Director Malik Hassan of Human Diplomatic Services entering the chamber, flanked by 6 Harmony Fleet security officers. But something was wrong with the picture. The security officers moved like they were escorting him rather than arresting him. Hassan walked to the center of the chamber with the easy confidence of a man who had never truly been helpless. He was older than Marcus, with silver threading through his dark hair, but he carried himself with the same predatory grace that had made the students at the Harmony Institute so unconsciously uncomfortable. Director Hassan, Admiral Vex said, her voice tight with forced control. You are under arrest for conspiracy, espionage and violations of the Harmony Accords. Hassan smiled, that same unsettling expression that humans seem to share. Am I? Notice your security officers haven't actually restrained me. Perhaps they understand something you haven't quite grasped yet. It was then that the council noticed the details they had missed. The security officers' hands rested easily on their weapons, but they weren't pointing them at Hassan. They were pointing them outward, toward the assembled representatives. You see, Hassan continued, settling into the speaker's chair with casual authority. The psychological profiles weren't wrong. We really are cooperative, empathetic, and capable of forming deep emotional bonds. We work together, we sacrifice for the greater good, and we feel genuine remorse when we cause unnecessary harm. He paused, letting the words sink in before delivering the killing blow. We just do all of that while remaining the deadliest hunters the galaxy has ever seen. Chancellor Zai's energy form flickered wildly. Impossible. The neural pathways for cooperation and predation are mutually exclusive. Our xenobiologists have proven this across 1,000 species. Your xenobiologists, Hassan said gently, studied prey species. You've never encountered a pack hunter before. The term hit the chamber like ice water. Pack hunter. It was a theoretical classification, something discussed in academic papers about impossible evolutionary contradictions. A species that combined the cooperative instincts of herd animals with the lethal efficiency of apex predators. Wolves, Hassan continued, seeming to read their thoughts. Lions, orcas, velociraptors, humans. We don't hunt alone, we hunt together. And when we hunt together, we don't just kill our prey. We become something greater than the sum of our parts. Dr. Ness's crystalline form had begun resonating with fear harmonics. The embedding operation. How long have you been planning this? Since first contact, Hassan admitted readily. The moment we realized that the galaxy was populated entirely by prey species, we knew we had 3 choices: reveal ourselves and face extermination, remain isolated on Earth, or infiltrate and prepare for integration on our terms. Integration. Admiral Vex's voice cracked with the strain. You call this integration? Hassan's expression grew serious. Admiral, let me ask you something. In your species' history, when did you last face an existential threat? When did your people last have to fight for their very survival? The Admiral's silence was answer enough. 1800 years ago, Hassan continued. The Valorian expansion encountered the automated defense grid of the extinct Kethmoran Empire. Your entire species faced extinction from ancient killing machines that recognized no diplomatic protocols. Do you know what saved you? Admiral Vex's skin had gone pale blue with remembered trauma. Every Valorian knew the story of the dark years when their peaceful civilization had nearly died because they lacked the capacity for violence. The machines, they shut down. The xenoarchaeologists said it was a programming error, a cascade failure in their threat assessment algorithms. Hassan's smile was gentle, almost paternal. There was no programming error, Admiral, we were there. The words fell into silence so profound that the chamber's life support system seemed deafeningly loud. Impossible, Chancellor's eye whispered. Humans had barely achieved fusion power 1800 years ago. You had no interstellar capability. We had determination, Hassan replied. And we had already learned that sometimes cooperation means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. A small group of humans had made contact with your scouts, learned about the threat. We built a single ship with everything we had, a suicide mission to the Kathmoran grid. He gestured, and the chamber's holographic display shifted to show historical records that sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. Valorian archives, authenticated and verified, showing human bodies in the ruins of ancient Kathmoran installations. Humans who had died fighting machines programmed to destroy anything that lived. We saved your species, Hassan said quietly. And then we erased ourselves from your history because we knew you would fear us more than you ever feared the machines. The revelation hit the chamber like a seismic shock. Species after species began accessing their own historical archives, searching for gaps, for unexplained salvations, for moments when disaster had been averted by forces they couldn't explain. What they found changed everything. The Klaxon swarm wars ended when a viral attack disabled the Hive Queen's traces of human genetic markers in the weapon code. The Morganti plague, cured by a breakthrough in xenobiology that their own scientists had been centuries away from achieving. Research notes bearing the hallmarks of human pattern recognition. The ethereal collective's near dissolution during the quantum storm crisis prevented by stabilization algorithms that used mathematical principles their species had never discovered. For 2,000 years, humanity had been watching over them, protecting them, saving them from threats they never even knew existed. Why? The question came from Sylph Viren, the Celestine representative whose species mind was reeling from the implications. Why help us? Why protect species that would have destroyed you if they'd known what you were? Hassan stood, and for the first time since entering the chamber, the full weight of his presence made itself known. Here was not just a human but something that embodied the entire history of a species that had climbed to the top of evolution's food chain through intelligence, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Because, he said, his voice carrying the weight of 20 billion souls, that's what predators do when the prey they're protecting becomes family. The lights in the chamber suddenly flickered, and then the impossible happened. Every communication device, every quantum relay, every emergency beacon in the chamber activated simultaneously, and from speakers across the galaxy came a sound that no civilized species had heard for millions of years. The howl of the hunt. But this wasn't the call of a single predator. This was the coordinated voice of an entire species, calling to its pack, and the pack was everywhere. The howl lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it ended, the silence that followed was pregnant with the weight of fundamental change. Every representative in the chamber understood, with the clarity that comes from evolutionary terror, that the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Vex was the first to break that silence, her voice barely above a whisper. How many ships? Hassan looked at her with what might have been respect. Even in the face of her worst nightmare, the Admiral was thinking tactically. Admiral, you're asking the wrong question? What's the right question? The right question is, why are you still alive? The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Around the room, representatives began to understand the true scope of their situation. If humanity had been embedded in their societies for 50 years, if they had operatives in positions of authority across the galaxy, then the Council should already be dead. The fact that they were still breathing meant something far more terrifying. Humanity was choosing to let them live. Dr. Ness's crystalline form resonated with confusion harmonics. You're negotiating. We're clarifying, Hassan corrected. For 2,000 years we've operated in the shadows, protecting this galaxy from threats it couldn't comprehend or combat. We've prevented 17 extinction-level events, stopped 4 separate attempts at galactic conquest, and eliminated threats that your species never even detected. He gestured. And the chamber's holographic display began cycling through images that made the assembled representatives sick with retroactive terror. Biological weapons that could have sterilized entire star systems. self-replicating machinery that viewed organic life as raw material, quantum parasites that fed on consciousness itself. We've been your guardians, Hassan continued, and your shepherds, but we're tired of hiding what we are. Chancellor Zai's energy form flickered with desperate hope. Then, you're not here to conquer us. Hassan's expression grew serious. Chancellor, I need you to understand something about human psychology. Conquest implies taking something from someone else. But you can't conquer something that was never yours to begin with. The words carried a weight that pressed down on the chamber like a gravitational field. Admiral Vex felt her legs give way and she collapsed into her chair as the full implication hit her. The galaxy, she whispered. You're saying the galaxy belongs to humanity. I'm saying the galaxy has always belonged to whoever was strong enough to protect it, Hassan replied. For the past 2 millennia, that's been us. The only question now is whether we continue that protection openly or return to the shadows. From across the chamber, a new voice spoke, young, angry, and carrying the righteous fury of idealism confronting reality. It was Keththor Nix, the junior representative from the Frontier Worlds Coalition. This is insane, he declared, his scaled features flushed with indignation. You're talking about galactic hegemony, about imposing the will of one species on 1,000 others. The Harmony Accords, Hassan interrupted, exist because we allowed them to exist. They work because we make them work. Every peace treaty, every trade agreement, every diplomatic resolution of the past 2,000 years has been successful because humanity ensured it was successful. Hassan moved to the central display, calling up a real-time map of galactic civilization. Thousands of worlds, hundreds of species, trade routes, and communication networks spanning 1/4 of the galaxy. It was beautiful, complex, and fragile. Do you know what happens when you remove the apex predator from an ecosystem, Mr. Nix? The young representative's anger faltered in the face of Hassan's quiet intensity. The prey species overpopulate. They collapse, Hassan finished. Without the pressure of predation, prey species breed beyond their environment's carrying capacity. They exhaust their resources, fragment into competing groups, and ultimately destroy themselves through war, famine, and ecological collapse. He gestured to the galactic map. This galaxy contains 17 species capable of building planet-killing weapons, 23 with the technology to engineer extinction plagues, 41 that could destabilize stars if they chose to, without a regulatory force, without a predator keeping them in check. How long do you think galactic civilization would last? The question hung in the air like a toxin. Every representative in the chamber was thinking the same thing. Without the hidden human influence, their own species might have been among the first to use such weapons. Dr. Nays chimed with reluctant understanding. The stellar war games, the simulations our strategists run to model galactic conflict scenarios, they all end in near total extinction within 200 years, because they assume prey behavior, Hassan confirmed. Territorial competition, resource hoarding, zero-sum thinking. Without a superior force maintaining order, prey species inevitably consume their environment and each other. Admiral Vex forced herself to stand, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed. So what are you proposing? Open rule? A human empire? Hassan's expression softened, and for a moment he looked almost sad. Admiral, you still don't understand. We don't want to rule you. We want to protect you. There's a difference. Is there? This came from Sylph Varen, her species mind projecting skepticism across multiple probability matrices. How does one distinguish between protection and domination? Hassan was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of personal pain. Because, Sylph Varen, protection sometimes means sacrificing yourself for something you love. The holographic display shifted, showing a new image that sent shockwaves through the chamber. It was a star map, but not of known space. This showed the galaxy's outer rim, the vast darkness beyond the light of civilization. And in that darkness, something was moving. The Devourers, Hassan said simply. We've been monitoring them for the past 50 years. A machine intelligence from outside our galaxy, consuming everything in its path. Current projections put them at our galactic border in 18 months. The chamber erupted in alarm. Species after species began accessing their own sensor networks, trying to confirm or deny the impossible information they were seeing. What they found was a carefully maintained information blackout. Sensor readings dismissed as cosmic background radiation, deep space anomalies classified and buried, reconnaissance missions that never returned. "You've known," Chancellor Zai accused, his energy form crackling with betrayal. "You've known about this threat and said nothing." "We've known," Hassan confirmed. "And we've been preparing. For 18 months, humanity has been mobilizing every resource we have. We've built weapons that violate half the galaxy's ethical guidelines. We've developed strategies that would be considered war crimes if used against organic life. We've prepared to do things that would make us monsters in your eyes because that's what it's going to take to keep you alive." The truth of it hit the chamber like a physical force. Humanity hadn't revealed themselves out of arrogance or conquest. They had revealed themselves because they were about to go to war, and they needed the galaxy to understand why they were about to become the very monsters everyone feared. Admiral Vex's voice cracked as she spoke. "Our fleets, how can we help?" Hassan's smile was gentle, almost paternal. "Admiral, your fleets are beautiful. They're marvels of peaceful engineering, designed for exploration and diplomacy. They're absolutely perfect for the galaxy we're going to build after we win this war. But they're useless in the war itself," she finished, understanding flooding her voice. "They're not built for what's coming," Hassan confirmed. "The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't surrender. They don't feel fear or pain or remorse. They exist only to consume, and they view organic life as particularly inefficient matter that needs to be recycled." He paused, letting the weight of that sink in. "But humans, we understand monsters. We know how to fight things that can't be reasoned with, because we've been fighting monsters our entire evolutionary history. Our planet spent 2 million years trying to kill us, and we not only survived, we thrived." Dr. Nitz resonated with desperate hope. "What do you need from us?" "Trust," Hassan said simply. "For the next 18 months, you're going to see us do things that violate every principle of civilized behavior. You're going to watch us build weapons that could sterilize solar systems. You're going to see us prepare for war with an efficiency that will terrify you." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "And you're going to have to trust that when it's over, when the Devourers are nothing but scattered atoms drifting in space, we'll still be the same species that has spent 2,000 years protecting you from the darkness." The chamber fell silent as the full scope of the situation became clear. Humanity had spent millennia hiding their true nature, not out of malice, but out of love. They had become the galaxy's secret guardians, standing watch against threats that peaceful species couldn't even imagine. And now, faced with the greatest threat in galactic history, they were finally asking to be seen for what they truly were. Young Kathvarnik spoke into the silence, his voice small and uncertain. What if we can't trust you? What if the war changes you into something we can't live with?" Hassan's expression grew distant, and for a moment the weight of 20 billion souls was visible in his eyes. "Then you'll do what prey has always done when the predator becomes the monster." "Which is," Hassan's smile was sad, tired, and somehow infinitely reassuring. "You'll find a way to kill us. Because that's what family does when someone they love becomes something they can't save." The chamber erupted as every emergency communication system activated simultaneously. Admiral Vex's tactical display lit up with proximity alerts from the galactic rim. The Devourers had arrived 18 months early, and they were moving faster than anyone had projected. But as panic filled the chamber, Marcus Chen's voice echoed from speakers across the galaxy one final time. "All human operatives, this is command. Operation Shepherd is now active. Protect the flock, no matter the cost." And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, 2 million years of evolution prepared to meet the ultimate test. The galaxy's apex predators were going hunting.